Welcome, everybody, to Bible Bites. I'm Pastor Dan, and we are reading through the Bible one small bite at a time. We're picking up in Matthew 15, verse 21. Today's passage is very challenging. I am not going to be able to explain away all the challenging aspect of this passage, but I hope to at least provide some clarity. So, leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the regions of Tyre and Sidon. Those cities are in modern-day Lebanon, north of Israel. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him, crying out, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly." We have to understand here the relationship between Canaanites, who are Gentiles, and the Jews. In history, Jews and Canaanites were initially enemies. At this point, though, in history, their hostility toward each other had largely dissipated. However, the Canaanites, again, Gentiles, were not part of Jewish worship and culture. They were largely excluded. They could take steps to be part of Jewish culture and worship, but today we would look at the hoops they had to jump through and say they're pretty big hoops. The Gentiles now were seen as outsiders. Again, not part of this Jewish inner circle. The Jews understood themselves as God's own and God's chosen people, and the Gentiles didn't fit that. Now, even in the temple of the Jews, there was a court of the Gentiles. The Gentiles could only go so far into the temple. Further, Gentiles were seen as unclean. Jews were not actually able to go into their homes or to eat with them. This was simply the culture of the Jews in Jesus' day. And everyone in the Roman world understood the relationship between Jews and Gentiles because there were Jewish settlements and synagogues in all over the place throughout the Roman Empire. And so the Jews were exclusive because, again, they understood themselves to be God's chosen. Now, this Canaanite or Gentile was also a woman, so she would have been seen as even less on the totem pole in society in general. That's just the place of women in that day. But so that's just kind of some context here. And she's calling out to Jesus, calling him Son of David. Now, the Jews prophesied that the anointed one of God, who was going to establish God's kingdom, would be a person who was literally in the lineage of King David, who ruled in Israel. He was an Old Testament king. And Jesus was literally that person. He was in the lineage. You could trace his lineage back to David himself. She was recognizing what the prophets said. So a non-Jewish Canaanite, also a woman, but here she's recognizing the truth of who Jesus is and the truth of what the Jewish prophets had said about the coming Messiah. And she's seeking for help for her daughter, right? So Jesus did not answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, "Send her away, for she keeps crying out after us." Why did Jesus not mention or answer a word? So this woman's in the crowd. She's making some amount of commotion and stirring up some commotion here. Why does Jesus not answer? Perhaps he's so focused on ministry, on teaching, and maybe that's the reason why. But another reason may be exactly what he states here in verse 24. He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." This is a mission-focused statement. Jesus is saying, listen, my mission, why I was sent, was to the Jews, to call the lost back to God, to call the Jews to repentance, to point them to God's kingdom, that the fulfillment of their hope and the fulfillment of prophecy is now in their midst. And so it was a mission-focused statement, but Jesus was also really indicating what was true about the relationship between Jews and Gentiles in that day, in Jewish culture. Okay, let's move on here. And verse 25 states, "The woman came and knelt before him. 'Lord, help me,' she said." Now, Jesus was apparently unwilling to send the woman away. You know, she's part of the crowds, but he's not addressing her either. And now she's like right in his face. She's kneeling before him. In order for Jesus to ignore her now would really be a sign of, I think, of huge disrespect. And it would not be like Jesus' character to do that. Jesus replies to her, "It's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." Literally, Jesus is saying it's not right to take from Israel what God has given them and to give it to the Gentiles. Now, the word dogs, we look at that and say, wow, that's really demeaning. Is Jesus really being that prejudiced? Is he really showing that much favoritism? It almost appears like he's being racist even. But I don't believe that he is, and I don't think the woman took it that way either. So Jesus, again, is indicating what the relationship is between the Jews and Gentiles. He's also indicating what he understands his true mission to be and what the reality is, that God did call the Israelites to be a nation, his own people, a kingdom of priests. And it wasn't altogether that the Gentiles couldn't worship God and be somewhat a part of that culture, but they weren't a part of the inner circles. Okay, so now the woman's response seems so wise. She challenges Jesus a little bit, but doesn't call him out to say that he's wrong. But her response here is in 27. She says, "Yes, it is, Lord," meaning that it can be right. Because she said, even the dogs. So she's referring to herself, the Gentiles, as the dogs. Again, I don't believe she's taking this as a term of real demeaning, like we understand it today. But I don't think that was the way it was in the culture. She says, but even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. So she's saying, I'm willing to take whatever God is willing to give, even if it's the leftovers. I understand. In a sense, she's saying, I recognize your ministries to the Jews, but whatever's left over, whatever I can glean, I will receive. Jesus said to her, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted." And her daughter was healed at that moment. So I'm realizing that I've not explained away really all the challenge of this passage as we see it today, taking it out of the context from Jesus' day and trying to understand it today in our present context. But hopefully I have helped with some clarity at least. And we will look forward to seeing you in our next video. Till then, be blessed.